Hey everyone, welcome back to this week's segment of This Is How I Roll. Today I'm going to talk to you guys about a few rods and reels and techniques that worked for me throughout this whole fishing season. 2020 season is a wrap. We just finished up our last tournament, and looking back and reflecting back on these tournaments, there was a few rods and reels that always seemed to be on my deck and always seemed to be a player throughout the Bassmaster Opens that we fished this year. Here's a few of them. So the first one I have here is a Dropshot rod. Dropshot seemed to play a lot for me this year. It kind of seemed like wherever we went, we were running into brush piles and offshore structure, and that's what I feel comfortable doing. This Dropshot played a big role this year in putting a lot of fish in the boat, and you know, without this setup right here, you know, I don't know if I would have had some of the finishes that I did. So the first rod and reel combo that I want to go over is one of my favorites. It's a spinning rod combo here, and man, this rod and reel right here is probably one of my number one rod and reel that I would pick if I had to just pick one rod and reel. You know, I can kind of do anything with it. I throw a lot of different techniques on it, from drop shot, I throw Ned rig on it. You know, you can really anything, a swim bait, small swim bait. You can throw a shaky head, Senko, all that kind of stuff. But you know, this rod and reel here, it's a g-loomis NRX. It's the 872S JWR. It's a 7'3" extra fast medium. Man, this rod here is just, it really is my go-to. It's one of my favorites. You know, g-loomis and Shimano make a ton of good spinning rods and reels, but you know, just me personally, this is how I roll with this. It's one of my favorites, and it's always my go-to. I pair that up with a Stratic CI4. It's a 300 series, 10-pound Power Pro braid, and usually an 8 to 10, sometimes a 12-pound fluorocarbon leader. With my drop shot, this is one of the baits that really worked for me good this year. It's just a Zoom finesse worm, simple Zoom finesse worm. Got a rebarb hook on there and a 1/4 ounce Swagger tungsten drop shot sinker. It's a casting sinker there. 99% of the time I'm going to start out with a 1/4 ounce. Lake Louisville, the winds are blowing 20 to 30 miles an hour. I actually switched over to 3/8 ounce just so I get a little bit more feel for what my bait was doing down there. But 99% of the time I'm going to go with a 1/4 ounce. So the second rod and reel setup that put a lot of fish in the boat this year is, again, it's a g-loomis NRX. It's the 852S JWR. JWR is a Jig Worm rod. You know, it's real close to the 872. It's just a couple inches shorter. It's a 7'1". It is an extra fast medium. This one, I like this rod. I usually only use this for Senkos if I'm gonna wacky rig a Senko, you know, if I'm gonna put a nail weight in it, and then a shaky head. This is kind of my number one shaky head rod. Threw a shaky head a lot this year. You know, up north, I usually go to a Ned rig, but it seems like down south in these flooded reservoirs, you're gonna have standing timber, you're gonna have a lot of stuff on the bottom. These river systems, there's a lot of rock and that kind of stuff, and it seemed like I was getting hung up a lot with my Ned rig this year. So I went over to this shaky head. It's by Swagger Tungsten. It's a little football shaky head. This is a 3/16. Usually 3/16 or a 1/4 is what I typically go to. Just a Zoom trick worm. This green pumpkin candy, I think it's called, kind of my go-to. I really like this one. Unless I'm in super dirty water, I'll go to a different color or a darker color. Again, I'm paired up with a Stratic CI4. It's a 3000 size, 10-pound Power Pro braid, and usually I'm running about a 10-pound fluorocarbon leader with my shaky heads. So my last setup I want to go over with you guys that put a lot of fish in the boat. It seemed like I was throwing it, you know, kind of everywhere we went. And this year is kind of the first year, or maybe even second year, that I've really kind of got into this technique and been throwing it a lot. It's such a versatile bait here, and that is a swing head. This one here is by Swagger Tackle. This is a 1/2 ounce tungsten swing head. It's got it paired up with I think it's a Strike King Rage Bug. I was just throwing it at Lay Lake a bunch. I was throwing it at Lake Cherokee, threw it on Sam Rayburn. You know, kind of anywhere you go. I mean, you can fish it like a jig, you can throw it out there, you can swim it like a crankbait, you can throw it up into cover. I mean, there's just so many different things you can do with this. Arkansas River, you know, I was fishing some shell beds, some offshore rock, road beds, that kind of stuff. I was throwing this, you know, I was swimming it, I was hopping it, I was dragging it. You know, really cool bait. The rod and reel combo that I got this paired up with is it's an NRX, a g-loomis NRX, and it's the 873C CRR, and that's a Carolina rig rod. You know, it's an unbelievable Carolina rig rod, but honestly, I use this rod for a lot of different things. You know, I'll throw smaller football head jigs on it. I'll throw this swing head obviously on it. Kind of anything I'm dragging or swimming on the bottom, I'll use this rod. You got a great action, great tip, got a lot of backbone. It's a 7-foot 3-inch fast medium heavy rod, and man, this is really kind of my go-to. I got a bunch of them, and I absolutely love these. Got it paired up here with a Shimano Curado K. This is a 200 XG. It's an 8.5 to 1. So even though I have a fast gear ratio reel here, I'm able to slow that bait down to as slow as I want to go, just depending on how fast I want to reel it. When I have a slower gear ratio reel, if I really want to speed that up, it seems like I'm working a lot harder to get that to go. It's easier for me to just slow it down by just slowly reeling that bait in. Typically I throw this on 16 or 17 pound fluorocarbon. Occasionally I'll bump it up to 20 pound depending on what kind of structure I'm fishing and the water clarity. Or also I'll go down to like a 12-pound test fluorocarbon. So Christmas is right around the corner. If you guys are looking for, some rods and reels set up, these are really top of the line rods and reels here. Shimano and g-loomis make a ton of really good rods and reels at a much lower price point. That's just what I use in my tournaments. It's just kind of what I started using, and I just really like them. They're what works best for me. I do have a bunch of different rods and reels that I use from Shimano and Loomis, and I love every single one of them. But this is, just kind of my go-tos when I get on the water for a tournament. So this is how I rolled this year with a few of these rods and reels and techniques that put a bunch of fish in the boat. Thank you guys for tuning in to this week's segment. If you guys do like this content, make sure you hit that subscribe button. In the meantime, I'm gonna put these back in my rod locker and I'm going bassing.